Hello, and welcome back to the Mythical Madam, my little corner of the internet where we dive into myths, legends, folklore, and all the messy, magical, and sometimes horrifying stories that make you question everything, and then maybe make you believe just a little. I'm June, your guide, your emotionally invested narrator who cannot and will not stay chill when it comes to mythology. And today, we're diving into a story that is fierce, glittery, and literally explosive. Now, just a quick note before we dive in. The story you're about to hear, like many of the ones we will explore on this podcast, has traveled through time. It's been told and retold across generations, across regions, and by so many different voices along the way. And the thing about mythology is there's rarely just one version, depending on who's telling it, where they're from, and sometimes even when they're telling it, the details can shift completely. There could easily be 100, or let's be real here, maybe 1,000,000 versions of the same myth, each with its own twist, its own meaning, and its own flavor. That's part of what makes these stories so special. They're alive, they evolve, and they carry little pieces of every storyteller who's ever passed them on. What I'm sharing with you today is just one of many versions shaped by the research I've done and my love for these myths. But it's never the only way the story is told. So as always, I invite you to listen with curiosity and open mind and honor the many paths these stories have taken to get here. So sit back, suspend that belief, and let's enjoy this episode for what it is, a story that's been passed down through generations, meant to spark curiosity and maybe even a little reflection. Welcome to episode 4. Welcome to the Mythical Madam, my little corner of the internet where we sip on a bit of curiosity and wander into the eerie, the haunting, and the beautifully strange. So if you're ready for a little chaos, a little darkness, and yes, plenty of my unsolicited thoughts along the way, get cozy and settle in wherever you are. Welcome to the Mythical Madam podcast, where we share the myths, the mysteries, and oh yes, the mess. Picture this scene in your mind for a moment. It's dusk. The sky is heavy with clouds, the air is thick, waiting, silent. And then, out of nowhere, a sudden flash of light cuts across the horizon. Brilliant, blinding, followed by the low, distant rumble of thunder. Close behind. We've all seen it. Lightning first, sharp, fast, impossible to ignore, and then thunder answering back, loud and delayed, like it's one step behind. But have you ever wondered why? Why does lightning always lead and thunder always follows? In Southeast Asia, there's a story that answers that question. A story shared between Cambodia and Thailand with echoes that ripple into Laos and Myanmar. A story about the goddess of lightning herself, Moni Mekhala, and the relentless giant of thunder, Ream Eyso. Now, depending on where the story is told, you might hear her be called Moni Mekhala or just Mekhala, with Ream Eyso sometimes spelled Ream Eyso with an R at the end, or even referred to as a demon or a titan. But across these regions, the core of the myth remains the same. This is a tale of light versus fury, patience versus pride, and the cosmic chase that still plays out across the skies today. In Cambodia, this story is woven deeply into a classical dance and royal performance. The robot Moni Mekhala Ream Eyso, where dancers embody their struggle in a glittering, deliberate reenactment of the myth. In Thailand, you might hear the story tied into traditional beliefs about storms and balance, lightning as the graceful strike of the goddess, and thunder as the rageful roar of one that would never catch her. It's one of those rare myths that crosses borders, told slightly differently depending on the culture, but always carrying the same heartbeat underneath. And like many of the stories we explore here, it's more than just the sky, more than just lightning and rain. It's about power. It's about how we choose to claim it, either with patience or with pride. Moni Mekhala's story begins not as a goddess high in the heavens, but as a student, studying under a wise hermit or a teacher. And what she's learning isn't warfare, it's not destruction, it's not how to swing an axe. She's learning spiritual discipline, focus, merit, and dedication. Because the prize at stake isn't a crown or a throne or anything so obvious. It's a crystal ball, glowing, radiant, and said to hold the power of the heavens themselves. A reward promised to whichever student proves the most committed, the most disciplined. But of course, Moni Mekhala isn't the only one who wants it. Enter Ream Eyso, the giant who believes he deserves that power, but has no patience for that work it takes to truly earn it. So, the picture and stage is set. Isn't just a story about lightning and thunder. It's a story about what happens when pride and patience meet, when power is granted not by force, but by grace. And as you'll hear, the fight doesn't end when the prize is given, it's only the beginning. The contest itself, it wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, there was no swords clashing, no storms raging overhead. Not yet anyway. The challenge set by their teacher was deceptively simple. Gather water, but not with force, not with aggression, with skill, with control, and with grace. Because real strength, the kind that lasts, isn't about domination. It isn't about who can make the biggest splash or shout the loudest. It's about mastery. The quiet kind of confidence that doesn't need to prove itself because the work speaks for itself. And so there they both stood, 2 students, 1 prize, a glowing crystal orb said to hold the power of the heavens themselves. The task? Bring the water into your hands, not by seizing it, but by showing you understand it. Ream Eyso, towering and sure of his power, was the first to step forward. And to be fair, the man had presence. The kind of presence that makes the earth feel a little smaller beneath your feet. He moved like someone who had never once been told no. The dude didn't hesitate. There was no humility in his approach, just raw certainty. With a commanding sweep of his arm, he called to the water. And yes, the waves answered. They rose, they moved, but not willingly. The surface rippled violently, splashing out of control, as if resisting the weight of his demand. The more force he used, the rougher the waves became, chaotic and unsettled. It was power, absolutely, but it was messy, unrefined, a show of strength without a drop of grace. Then it was Moni Mekhala's turn. And where Ream Eyso had brought force, Mekhala brought focus. She stepped forward slowly, calm, steady. Every movement deliberate. There was no rush, no need to posture. She didn't try to overpower the task. She understood the assignment. Kneeling at the water's edge as she extended her hands open with patience, she didn't demand the waves to rise. She invited them. And the water, they listened. It lifted itself toward her, very smooth, steady and gentle, like it had been waiting for her all along. With one graceful motion, Moni Mekhala gathered the water into the crystal orb. The surface of the lake was still beneath her touch. Not a single drop was wasted. The hermit teacher watched closely, silent. But he didn't need to speak. His gaze told the whole story. Moni Mekhala didn't just complete the task, she mastered it. And maybe the hardest thing for Ream Eyso to swallow wasn't that he lost, it was how easily she made it look. Because here's the thing about pride, especially the pride of someone like Ream Eyso, it doesn't sit quietly in second place. It smolders, it stews, and it waits. Because for him, this wasn't over. Nope, not even close. The prize may have been claimed, but the real battle was just the start of everything else. And Ream Eyso doesn't give up, like ever. He lets this anger live rent-free in his head. Even after being literally flashbanged by the goddess of light herself, he keeps chasing her, throwing his axe, hurling thunderbolts, and trying to crush her. But Moni Mekhala, wielding her beautiful radiant crystal, keeps dancing away, deflecting his attacks with blinding beams of light. This is where the myth takes on that beautiful cosmic poetic twist because their fight, it's eternal and it never ends. Every time we see a flash of lightning streak across the sky, that's Moni Mekhala's light. Every time we hear thunder rumbling behind it, that's Ream Eyso, still chasing her, still swinging, and still bitter as ever. And the rain? Some say it's the sweat from their endless battle. Others say it's the tears of the earth watching this tragic eternal chase just unfold. I mean, tell me that's not cinematic, right? Now, like I've said earlier, the dynamic between Moni Mekhala and Ream Eyso, it really depends on who you're asking, where you're asking, and honestly, how much the storyteller feels like giving away that day. In the Cambodian version, probably the most well-known retelling, Moni Mekhala is the shining, brilliant student, humble, patient, committed to the work. She earns that magical crystal orb through merit and discipline, while Ream Eyso stands on the other side of that contest, angry and unwilling to accept defeat. His pride is bruised, and the way he lashes out, it's pure ego, all force and no elegance. But if you cross into Thailand, the tone begins to shift. In some Thai retellings, Ream Eyso isn't just a villain of a story, there's an extra layer, a suggestion that his rage might have been fueled by something a little more complicated than jealousy alone. Because some say, depending on who's telling it, that he might have loved her, or at least thought he did. But this isn't the kind of love that uplifts. It's possessive, entitled, the kind of love that says, if I can't have you, no one can. Desire tangles so tightly with pride that it curdles into something very bitter. It's the kind of longing that mistakes control for affection, that turns admiration into destruction. And Moni Mekhala makes it clear, this isn't love. Not the kind that deserves to be returned, because real love doesn't need to own you. Real love doesn't swing an axe at your head when it doesn't get its way. In some Laotian interpretations, or Laos, though, the focus shifts away from the personal drama entirely. Here, the story becomes more cosmic, more symbolic. Lightning and thunder aren't framed as rival students or bitter enemies, but as eternal counterparts, two forces of nature destined to chase one another across the sky. Not out of hatred, but more like out of balance, because what is lightning without the echo of thunder that follows behind, right? And then there's the Burmese or the Myanmar version, where Mekhala is often referred to as Mekhala, spelled with two Ks. And here, the story leans even deeper into the spiritual. In these retellings, the crystal orb isn't just some magical weapon or even a trophy. It becomes a symbol of enlightenment itself, a reward not for power, but for virtue. The focus isn't just on who wins the contest, it's on why they win. Moni Mekhala earns the orb through humility, patience, and spiritual discipline, through the quiet, steady work of accumulating merit. And Ream Eyso's downfall is not just anger, it's failure, spiritual failure. His rage, his impatience, his inability to cultivate wisdom becomes the real reason why he loses. Not because he's weak, but he refuses to grow. It's a lesson that feels as heavy as it did back then. Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't stomp or shout. It's built in the quiet moments, in patience, in discipline. The hard, often thankless work of showing up again and again with integrity and dignity. Oh, and I can't forget one of the most beautiful cultural retellings, the Khmer Royal Ballet of Cambodia. There's a performance called the Robam Moni Mekhala Ream Eyso, where dancers bring this myth to life on stage. And even without words, you can feel the story. Mekhala's movements are soft, floating, light as air. Ream's are heavy, wild, and erratic. Really beautiful, and you really have to see it. It's not just a battle between two characters, it's a dance between rage and radiance, between force and elegance. And here's a little detail I love. In some versions, Mekhala's light isn't even a weapon. Some say it might have even been a mirror. It reflects Ream Eyso's own fury back at him, blinding him with the light of his own rage, which, honestly, is the ultimate power move. Not the I will destroy you, but I will let you face the destruction you've created for yourself. So, depending on where you're standing, whose voice you're listening to, this myth might sound like a cautionary tale about toxic pride or about the dangers of possessive love, or maybe just a reflection of how lightning and thunder will always dance this cycle of light and sound. Or maybe it's all of the above. It's like I always say, myths are messy, and that's exactly when so. So we've talked about the why Ream Eyso couldn't let it go. Why losing to Mekhala, someone so steady, so elegant, so radiant, wasn't just a blow to his pride or his ego, but something much deeper. A mix of jealousy, heartbreak, entitlement, maybe even a warped sense of love. Because knowing why someone breaks doesn't always explain how that breaks shapes the world around them. This is the how. Because rage like Ream Eyso's, pride that's raw, that's wounded, doesn't just burn out and disappear. It grows, festers, it becomes something bigger than the moment itself. And that's how the story shifts from a contest between two students into a clash written across the sky. The moment Ream Eyso raises his axe, it stops being about the crystal orb. It stops being about the teacher, the lesson, or the prize. It becomes personal. It becomes endless and eternal. Kala doesn't meet his fury with even more fury, doesn't throw back violence for violence. Instead, she lifts her light, the crystal orb, now more than a symbol of merit, casts it into the heavens, explodes into brilliance, lightning itself, fast, untouchable, always first. And Ream Eyso, true to the storm inside him, he answers the only way he knows how, with thunder, loud, crashing, relentless, always chasing. But here's the part that always sticks with me. The thing that makes this more than just a battle. No matter how many times the thunder rolls, it never catches the light. No matter how loud the roar, it's always one step too late. Lightning comes first and thunder follows. Single time. In that rhythm, you can still feel the shape of their story. Not just a fight, cycle, a pattern that plays out again and again. Two forces tied together by anger, regret, pride, and maybe somewhere beneath all of that, the ache of what could have been. It's why the skies are never fully clear, why the storm always finds its way back. Because sometimes the hardest thing to let go of isn't the person, it's the fight itself. I've mentioned earlier that sometimes it's not the loudest stories that stay with us. It's not the biggest battles, the flashiest lights, or even the gods or monsters that leave the deepest marks. It's the stories that carry a kind of quiet weight, the ones that don't just tell us what happened. Sit with us afterwards. They leave us asking questions long after the storm has passed. And for me, this is one of those stories. Because yes, on the surface, it's about lightning and thunder, about a fight that plays out in the sky. But beneath all of that, there's something heavier, something human. It's the tension between wanting and deserving, between earning and demanding, pride and patience, and that it takes to grow. It's about how easy it is to believe that wanting something, wanting it so badly it hurts, should be enough to make it yours, and how devastating it feels when it isn't. And here's the part that makes this myth so much harder to swallow. It's not just the rage that sticks, it's the ache behind it. Because maybe, depending on which version you're hearing, some parts change. But maybe Ream Eyso isn't just angry because he lost. Maybe he was angry because he cared. Maybe he couldn't figure out how to turn that longing into something better. Because in the face of patience and light, pride was louder than his heart. And that's where this story kind of lingers, in that uncomfortable space where love, envy, heartbreak, and entitlement all kind of blur the lines together. Because whether it's a myth or just real life, we've all stood in that place at some point. That place where we're staring at the thing we want most and realizing that the way we're reaching for it might be the thing that's pushing it even further away. This isn't the kind of myth that hands you a clean moral at the end. It doesn't tell you how to forgive. It doesn't tell you how to move on. It just here. The weight of the question. What do we do with the things we have? What do we do when pride is louder than grace or elegance? And sometimes there is no easy answer. Sometimes the weight is the lesson. That, my wonderful friends, is the stormy, sparkling tale of Moni Mekhala and Ream Eyso, a goddess who moves with elegance and light, and a giant whose pride and heartbreak still thunders behind her, always chasing but never catching up. But not every haunting comes roaring across the sky. Battle is loud. 'Cause some stories, some of the most unsettling ones, don't come with thunder or lightning. Creep in quietly and they wait in silence. While Moni Mekhala and Ream Eyso's fight is written boldly across the heavens for all to witness, dazzling, it's deafening, it's undeniable. The next story we're stepping into, it hides where your guard is down. It lingers in the space where something or someone should have been. Picture this. There's like a road. A stranger is standing just ahead. Very still, motionless. You call out. Maybe move closer. And then they turn. But their face? Gone. No eyes, no mouth, no expression at all. Because sometimes the fear isn't the fight itself. It's in the absence. On the next episode, we're leaving the storms of Southeast Asia behind and heading to Japan, where they call it the Nopperabo, the faceless ghost, a spirit that doesn't need thunder or lightning to haunt you. It only needs to take away the one thing that makes us recognizable to each other, the face. So if you're ready to keep exploring or willing to sit with the stories that leave more questions than answers, I hope you'll join me next time. I'm June, and this has been The Mythical Madam. Thank you for hanging out with me, for listening, and for making space and time for these strange and beautiful little corners of the world. Until then, keep your eyes open, because not every story stares back. I'll be right here, loitering around and overthinking the next story, just for you. Until then, I'll catch you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And make sure to leave your comments if you're listening on Spotify. Don't miss out on a single episode. Episodes dropping bi-weekly, so make sure to subscribe on the show on Substack at Mythical Madam and my YouTube channel. The Mythical Madam is produced and edited in partnership with Andy Lara at sunfacemedia.com. I'm incredibly grateful for the collaboration and support in bringing these stories to life. All of this and more linked in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.